Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back.
We are back.
I'm Jason Kreidman.
I'm Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads, episode 119.
119.
Alan, how are you doing this morning?
Great.
Whoa, morning, evening.
It's
What
evening.
am I?
We're in the future.
Maybe somebody's listening to it in the morning and that
that's
makes
fine.
it okay.
Yeah. Wherever you are, how is it
exactly.
that part of the day?
Exactly. Well, as we always do, recording late at night, maybe sometimes it would be easier to record in the morning. I'd be a little bit more fresh. But good things happening this week. I'm excited. Very excited also to have a friend of mine here.
Yeah.
Who happens to share your same name. You know what's
great.
interesting? This is the third Alan in the
Third Alan
studio.
on the show.
There's something about me and Alan that I get along with Alan's
Do
real
you know
well.
I have like several Jason friends?
That's fine.
Seriously, I know a lot of Jasons.
So I asked Alan to come and include himself in the discussion. I thought this topic lends itself really well, and we started talking about some of the things that he had gone through and how we could essentially add some value and help some people out there. And so the title of this episode is Restarting Your Relationship with Your Child After Divorce. Mm-hmm. So our other episodes about single dads and divorce were actually some of our most popular episodes.
Sure.
And I think, obviously a lot of that is because they're seeking advice and seeking help. So I asked Alan to come and talk with us and lend his expertise or experience, if you will, and just kind of, see some of the things that we can say and do to kind of make things maybe a little easier when you're going through these kinds of things. So, Alan, say hello. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing rather well, thank you.
Yeah, good to have you in. Haven't seen you in a while, so it's nice to kind of hang out. We were hanging out for a couple hours before this. So why don't we get some background on your situation? How long you were married, the age of your children at the time, etc. Why don't you give us a little bit of background?
Let's see. I was married for I think 12 years total.
Okay,
about 12 years total, or maybe 12 years until the point where the divorce became final. My girls were actually 10 years old at the time that twins, yeah.
We have twins?
Yeah.
Twin girls,
cool.
yeah. 10 years old at the time that we split.
And they're how old now?
They are 12 now. They just promoted to out of elementary school into middle school. I'm very, very proud dad.
I can remember. In fact, that's one of my memories is being in the hospital, holding both of, couldn't believe, he was the first friend of mine that had twins. Couldn't believe holding two babies at one time. It was before I had kids. So yeah, it was incredible.
You did two of these at once.
Yeah,
wow.
Totally.
You're really efficient.
It was
with those
pretty
kids.
amazing. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
If you're going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they were 10, like you said, when that was going on or when you did that. And then now they're 12. So you've had a little bit of time, obviously, to reflect.
Couple of years, yeah.
Yeah. So, and so now the situation kind of maybe get us up to speed on sort of your current situation and sort of, what is it that you deal with now and sort of your time that you spend with the kids, et cetera.
Well, obviously I'm no expert. The only thing I can talk to is, what my experience has been and what I've learned from my experience. And it's been all focused around really, understanding where my kids are, developmentally, mentally, and understanding how to really communicate with them. Because in my relationship prior, I was a provider. I was out there not spending a ton of time at home, and the time that I was spending at home, I got to say I was not the most engaged parent at that time. And what I ended up finding out during the course of the divorce was that I had an expectation that my kids knew me as well as I knew them. That we had a relationship where, it was based on love, and we love each other. That's not in question. But I came to find out that as a result of how little time I was spending with them overall, that they didn't have as strong a relationship with me as I thought they did. They had a much, much stronger relationship with their mom. And so when, we got to this point where the relationship with their mom and I was changing, I found myself in a place where my kids didn't really know me. They knew who I was and they loved me, but I was more of an icon really than I was a person. Their relationship with me, their understanding of who I am and what I'm into and why I'm into it and how I got to where I was, and a lot of my history and all of those things didn't really exist in a big way. I was just kind of the good times guy that we'd go on vacations and we'd do things on the weekends, and
you were working a lot.
Well, I was working a lot. I was traveling a lot, but in retrospect, I could have done a much better job being present when I was present.
Got it.
And so as a result, over the last couple of years, I've found myself in a place where I'm almost in a sense starting from zero in terms of my relationship with them. That it's been about, not just getting to know them, although I know them really well, even though I wasn't as engaged as I could have been for sure. I did keep, an eye on who they were and what they were doing. And my relationship with them as a father has always been, devoted and strong. I love them with all my heart. It's just that they didn't have that same kind of insight and understanding because, they're little kids, they're developing minds, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was about, engaging these 10-year-olds from the perspective of this guy that was, kind of a symbol of what a dad is, but didn't have all of the substance behind it to really have like a reliable and trusting and just selfless relationship with each other.
How far into, and actually that's articulated beautifully. Like it's really, as your friend too, to understand that dynamic is really interesting because I only viewed it from the outside, and you don't get to see or you don't get to understand exactly what's going on. All you see is, oh, wow, okay, they're divorcing and you get to spend this much time. And, and really it's that insight. My question is, how far into that did you realize that and what was going on? Was it something that kind of right away you felt, because obviously I would imagine there's a lot of emotion attached with that. It's like, whoa, like they're not wanting to be there. Like, and there's a lot of emotion. You're already going through the emotion with the mom. Now, all of a sudden, you're dealing with this change and this emotion with the child as well. And I think, so I guess that's the question is how far into that process did you realize that? Because you articulate that very well. Is that something you actually realized going through it, or you're just realizing that sort of after the fact?
It's all a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
You make small realizations along the way the whole time. I think in the beginning, especially the way that the courts deal with things, they say, okay, well, now you're parent A, you get this much time, and parent B, you get this much time. And you can see your kids on this day, and then you can have them on dinner on these days when you don't have them on the weekends. It's very regimented that way. But there's a side to that in regards to the kids, and especially when you're trying to restart a relationship where, the cadence is good, but the transition can be really difficult. And the forcing of the schedule on kids where, they're still trying to gain confidence in their relationship with you can not be a great thing sometimes. And so one of the things that we discovered, over time, over a short period of time, was that the girls were in a place where they were just feeling a lot of pressure to connect. And when you put pressure on something, you don't let it happen naturally.
Right. Yeah.
So there was a little bit of, stepping back, a little bit of allowing the girls a little bit of room.
Did they communicate that with you or just act out? Or how did you understand that? Or was it just was it communicated to you through your ex or?
Well, we were seeing a counselor. Mm-hmm. The girls were seeing counselors, and they were having emotional problems, just feeling a lot of stress, becoming super stressed and expressing that in different ways. And so, in talking with the therapists, it was basically coming to that realization that we needed to step back, that we needed to give the girls a little bit of space, that we needed to create a better environment on my end. Because the reality was, when I went out of the house, I tried to find a place that was very close to them, where I could, be accessible, but it wasn't the ideal situation for them. And the place itself started to represent a physical iteration of that huge change in their life. Mm-hmm. And so whenever they would come to my place to stay, it was like they were living in an environment that represented the dissolution of their home, the home that they'd known for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so
it wasn't a home. I mean,
it wasn't a home. Yeah. It was kind of like this transition space where they didn't have, where they didn't have their own space.
Got it.
And so that was, there was another kind of obstacle in creating kind of a neutral environment for them to be able to just naturally grow a relationship with me. Or to expand it into, something that felt more naturally kind of father-daughter, versus something that somebody was, that an outside influence was trying to force them to engage.
Like, oh, it's Tuesday night. You're supposed to be with your father, and
yeah.
I
didn't think about that. It does feel kind of fragmented and weird. I grew up with split parents myself, and I guess I didn't really go through that phase because they were divorced before I was even even knew who they were. Yeah. But that being said, I did move around a lot and had to kind of go between the two. But I didn't think of it in that context, like that this represents the space of where I'm not really comfortable. I've lived here for so long now.
Yeah, they have their own room at the other house. Like that's where all their stuff is.
Yeah, well,
that makes sense.
But also your psychological connection to that space is even about not just the space itself, but that this is your home and now it's being fragmented and you're the cause of the fragmentation because you're over here now. And so it'd almost be better if you lived there and then the wife left for the week or whatever and just traded places for the moment.
Actually, I forget, there's some celebrities who did that where the children stay in the house
where they were.
Yeah, they stay where they are, and it's the adult who moves.
Yeah,
that seems.
I feel like
cool.
That makes more sense, and then it's almost better because I have a little mini vacation. I could go somewhere else and live somewhere
it's just
else.
as long as you have enough money to afford 3 places.
And that's the thing, because I've got friends that have, or a friend that's recently, split up, and for a while they were orbiting around the kids, but unless you have a ton of money, that's
hard to do.
Yeah, it's not really sustainable.
Not
or if you can both agree on, sharing the outside space as well, right?
Yeah.
But you run into few relationships where that's viable.
Right. Yeah.
So no, I mean it's really good, and I would imagine that there's a lot of dads who go through a similar situation but don't realize what it is that they're going through.
Yeah.
Like it was very cool to have that articulated, to understand that, because I can completely see, especially if a dad is working a lot and is out of the home a lot, the relationship dynamic becomes completely different when all of a sudden it's like, you're the center of attention. Okay, entertain me. And we have to maintain this connection now. And it's like, that's not the dynamic. Yeah. And that made a lot of sense. And so what I wanted to do too is kind of talk on a couple of points. You and I talked, prior to this of to try to understand, what are the things that you felt went really well because you were aware of them and mindful of it. And then maybe some other areas where you think, it could have been improved. And I think with that, we wrote down a couple of things of that I hope can help other dads who are going through something like this. So the first one is, the time that you spend is quality. It's not necessarily the quantity, and that when you are with them, your attention is focused. So maybe you can talk on that and sort of your experience with, like you said, okay, great, you have 50-50 shared time, but during that 50 time, you're doing errands, you've got a job, it's not quality time that you're spending with them per se,
Yeah, and that is a learning in progress. because I've never been divorced before. I've never had children. Being divorced. That whole dynamic. I mean, it's learning on the job essentially, right? And when I first left the household and I was the I was the part-time parent. I focused a lot of time on just being busy, doing things. But
you're saying when you're away from them?
No, with them.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
with them.
So we're going to go do stuff.
We're going to go do stuff, right? We'll go to the park and we'll do this and we'll do that. But which is great. I mean, it keeps you busy, but it doesn't really represent really good engagement with them, like knowing them, learning about them, giving them space to learn about you. That quality time is more important than just spending time with them. And what's tricky is creating the instances, creating the opportunities for those types of exchanges, because you can't force them. They have to occur naturally. And in order for them to occur naturally, you just have to, do just regular stuff, have conversations, hang out. When you're spending time with them, you're spending time with them. You're not, sometimes, it's inevitable. You're going to just be hanging out, watching a movie. But, engaging with each other, not being just, lost in your device, playing games with them, being interested in the things that they're interested in, just engaging them rather than sharing space with them.
Got it. Yeah, for sure. And I think you just touched on it. So one of the other things was, and you mentioned it a couple of times, was not forcing the relationship. And that's a big one. It's really being flexible. I think you had said that even though you had very specific visitations by the court, saying, hey, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, that flexibility was really required because of that dynamic and understanding, like, hey, maybe the girls don't want to come over. So do you force them to come over because it's Tuesday night and it's your night to have dinner? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people that think that way. It's like, well, it's my time. I'm going to get that time. That's the time that I'm supposed to have with them. Because otherwise, if I don't, I'm not going to get it. I can see how that could be a little bit of conflict. But if you take a step back, what you said makes sense. It's like, why are you forcing them to do something that they don't want to do? And even a bigger question is, how do you get them, if you can at all, to want? You can't force someone to want to come over, hey, I've got something, that's what a lot of the parents will do. It's right. Like, hey, I've got tickets to XYZ. So then, okay, we'll spend time with you, versus them organically wanting to come over to dad's house.
And I think that's the challenge, is really going to I think it has to be, I hate to say it this way, but kind of forced at first to be like, look, you're going to spend time at this X amount of time. We're going to do these things together. And I want, it's not that
then it's up to you to make it worthwhile.
But then eventually they'll look forward to it. Yeah. And I think that's the idea behind it, is that, you're put in that person's life for a reason. And so therefore, because if they give a kid everything they want, they're just going to choose their option that's least resistant. Right. They're going to just, I want ice cream every day.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not going to happen. You're going to have to eat the healthy stuff once in a while. And you're the healthy stuff, right? Apparently. Right. So I think that's what, I'm oversimplifying it, obviously. But I think that if I did everything I wanted to do all the time, I'd be a total spoiled brat, right, and a jerk probably. But that being said, I do think there's a point in time where it reciprocated, because I know there's certain times I did not want to spend time with one of my parents, but now it's a lot easier. Oh, especially now, but like even back then, I looked forward to it after I got to know him better and everything kind of worked out, So, and I was in a very similar situation. I was a lot closer to my mother than I was to my father, and my father and I had a kind of tumultuous relationship when I was really young. And then as I got older, I was like, I want to spend time with this guy. Who he is. But then when I got older and I underappreciated it a little bit more, especially when I got to college, and I became a man. And then I said, all right, well, let me get to know him a little better. And I appreciated his efforts. And I think
so he continued to just make the effort no matter what.
Yeah. He was like very much
like, a lot of parents will give up.
Not like, exactly. He didn't like, force me to do anything, but then there was no court mandate saying
it's easy for a parent to say, well, forget it. My child doesn't want to do this, so forget it. I'm not going to make it.
That lies in the problem too, so that the other thing happens when the kid doesn't want to, and then they're like, all right, I'm out. And then there's a problem with that too, where I think a lot of dads sometimes will go that direction because they're afraid of that conflict, so to speak. So
yeah. So how did you navigate that? I guess you still do it.
Yeah, let's trial by fire here.
Well, it is. But I mean, Alan, you bring up a good point. There were those moments where you said, I can't relate to this guy. I don't want to spend time with him. Yeah. And, and for me, I need to create ways for them to be able to relate to me. And it's really tricky when the things that you have personally as milestones in your life, a lot of them are no longer really relevant to kids these days. Mm-hmm.
I mean, an example.
Yeah, a great example. The way that we engage our friends these days, the things that are important in our lives as children these days, they're different for kids now than they were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I spent all of my time outside, just kind of,
me too.
Right. We all did, yeah.
Yeah, we all.
Exactly. And these days, especially kids that are, my girls are 12 of that age, it's more about,
musically,
their social circles. And
Snapchat
media.
And and the media and Instagram and all of these different things where the paradigm isn't the same. Where these days, if you want to punish your kid, you take away their device, right? It's no longer you can't go outside anymore. You're actually taking away their device and telling them to go outside.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Go outside and connect with the world.
This idea of just the way that that I tried to use stories from my past, things that were difficulties in my past to relate to them in their present. They're so different now.
They don't apply.
They don't apply anymore. And it's really hard.
In my day.
Yeah. Well, and you end up sounding a little like that. But
curmudgeonly.
The thing you have to realize is that fact exactly, that it's hard for them to build on your learnings when they don't have a way to relate to them. Mm-hmm. And so, you find yourself in a place where you have to reevaluate, their surroundings more than refer back to what your context was back when you were their age.
Yeah.
And there are things that don't change. When you're a certain age, you care about what the rest of the world thinks, right?
Sure.
But then you get to a certain age, as you get older, where you don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I'm at that age now.
Right. Me too.
I still care.
And it's important. When I was a kid, I would always say, when I would get angry at my parents, I would say, well, when I'm a parent, when I'm in your age, I'm going to remember what it was like to be my age, and I'm going to treat my kids differently. Right. Well, the same thing that was happening to me because of my parents then is happening to my kids because of me now, right? Yeah. That the things that we have as markers in our history were not relevant to each other, right?
Yeah.
And so, making that extra effort to understand their environment, to ask them every day, hey, what's going on at school? What's the playground talk? Because that's really where everything is. Yeah. If you know what's going on in the playground and who's talking about what and what they're saying and what the latest bad word is, all of those things, that's really where you find the place to start relating to your kids.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that also that the age group they're in, we don't get a chance to talk about this too often, but like you got preteens now.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, so and imagine,
You see the gray hair?
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a full head though. That's good.
And mine's coming in. My kids are getting a little bit older.
Exactly. The closer I didn't notice that. The closer you get to preteen,
absolutely,
the more gray comes out. But yeah. So they started off, as 10, which is double digits, and they're starting to kind of filter into that. And now they're at the preteen stage. So I imagine it's extra difficult on some level.
Tons of stuff going on.
Yeah, that there's just and the hormones and just a million things happening simultaneously on top of the things that are already difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is it's
speechless.
Yeah. Well, earlier, Jason, you and I were talking about rewards, right? Mm-hmm. How it's better to give positive feedback, that even negative feedback is feedback.
Right.
Right. And that you have to establish kind of a reward kind of structure or rewards that are relevant to them. right? So, this year for their birthday, for instance, I went to an Ariana Grande concert, right? It was super enjoyable, right? But it was what they...
And you were the only dad?
No, I was definitely not the only dad. But, it was something that was,
they loved it.
They loved it. Super important to them. For the graduation, as they get older, involving their friends in things and activities becomes a more important thing. They become more social, and that social aspect becomes so much more important. And so that their rewards become tied to a bigger social experience. And by doing that, you actually learn more about them, because you get to observe them. You don't try to be involved, or I don't try to be involved in, hanging out with their friends, right? I connect them with their friends, and I'll watch from a distance, and I'll enable them, and I will create a safe space for them to do their thing. But I won't try to get involved, because kids are going to be kids. They're going to do their thing.
Let's do a dance routine together.
Let's not actually. But so
invite their friends over. Like, no, I made up a new routine. I want to show everybody.
Yeah. But but creating those opportunities for them to evolve socially and being involved in it, but not being involved. Do you know what I mean? Like being involved in setting it up, but not trying to make yourself a part of it.
Well, you had said one of the other things was being involved in their activities. So I think, part of that is there's kind of two different things. One is, watching them, or being, going to something that they are involved with. Let's say they're doing dance or sports or music or whatever, and they have a recital, and it's making sure that you are present, or something at school or whatever, and then the other, like you said, is actually being involved and doing something that they enjoy, which is a whole other tip that we're offering. But it's basically showing interest in the things that they're interested in.
That was a really good point. You brought that up earlier as well, that being interested in the things they're interested in doesn't mean you're really interested in it. It's just that you're interested because they're interested in it.
Right.
It's not like, I want to listen to the exact same music and be all the things
let's sit down and play this video game.
Whatever it is.
I can't wait.
Yeah, but it's like you're showing interest in it.
You would like that.
Maybe there might be some overlapping interests, don't get me wrong. I know that me and people that are twice as young as me are interested in the same things at this point, but there's probably just enough to be said to say, hey, I'm interested in taking interest in what you're interested in. I'm interested because you're interested in it.
Right.
So I want to know more about it. Explain it to me. How do I fit in? If it's something I could, help out with, or even like you said, a video game or something, I'll play it. Yeah, why not? It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
So those are great. Another one I wanted to get into, is the communication, and it's not just. I think what the stuff that you've been saying is about how you communicate, but it's also just the fact that you do communicate. So whether it is text, phone, email. It's funny, kids don't use email these days, but they
don't.
Yeah,
they need an email address, because they got to establish all those accounts. They use.
I know.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
But and having, if possible, somewhat of a schedule, or at least if there is an expectation to know, okay, I know I'm going to be away from them for 5 days, but I'm going to talk to them, on this day or 2 or 3 days, or and to make sure that communication stays that way. Now, listening to what you've been saying, does that communication interfere at all with like that desire? I guess like in some cases, like you have to keep it short, because they don't want to sit there and talk to you maybe for a long time. Like they're in the middle of what they want to do,
the devices, technology make communication a lot easier, right?
Right. You can text them.
Yeah. And it also makes these periods of adjustment where you're being more organic about your schedule easier, because you can constantly be, texting and, video chatting. That makes it easier. But it is, daily engagement, right? I communicate with them every day, say good night every night, good morning every morning. During the day, sometimes depending on what they're up to, they reach out, I will reach out. The communication in that regard is constant, and that's a good thing.
And that's an interesting point, because I mean I've seen it in other friends where it may not be as smooth because the parent doesn't like that communication. They're not as tolerant of it. So it's like, if let's say they're with your ex, they're communicating with you, vice versa. When they're with you, you're being okay with them communicating with their ex. So that's obviously up to the parents, because I've known of situations where it's like, hey, when you're with me, it's my time. It's like that kind of selfishness, and it ruins it. That ruins the relationship.
It does, and and neither their mother nor I believe in doing
censoring that.
No, at all. Like, there's free communication between the girls and us at all times, right? If they need to talk to us, they can talk to us for whatever reason. And a lot of times it's mostly, hey, can I download this app?
It costs $20. I'm sorry.
But sometimes it's a call, or a FaceTime at like 11 o'clock at night, and it's one of the girls saying that she can't sleep, that she's got a lot going through her mind, and just sitting for as long as it takes to let her kind of express what it is that's on her mind. Yeah. And, and it's been amazing to get to that point. But the road to that point has been, has been pretty tumultuous. It's not an easy thing, and it helps a lot to have, to have professional help.
Yeah.
Right. To have that third voice that is nonpartisan.
Do you go separately? I guess, or do you go and then the kids go and then she go? Like, how does that work? Or is it just? Yeah,
the kids go separately. They have their own time, and then we get information from the therapists.
Got it. Okay.
Right. Okay. And it's giving them a space to have conversations. That's all really it is, and we accomplish so much just by talking.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So another thing, in addition to communication, was being consistent, and I think doing what you say you're going to do. So maybe even consistency is reliability, is that they know, hey, I've seen situations where a parent will say like, okay, they're going to, be here at 4:00 and they don't show up.
Right.
Well, hey, I got tied up, like that unreliability could be damaging, very damaging.
Well, and it doesn't have, like, to me, it doesn't really have an excuse these days when you have devices, right? Where you can at any point say, hey, listen, I'm running late,
Right.
I'm going to, or where are you, or what's going on, or can we change plans, or can we push, whatever it is, things come up in life. But I want to touch on something that you just mentioned also, was that, in this pursuit of being flexible, you also have to make sure that you're communicating to your kids that the flexibility is about finding normalcy, and that the ultimate goal is to establish like a schedule, to establish a pattern, because it can't be like whenever you feel like
loosey-goosey
all the time.
Right.
Because there's no way that you can create a schedule around that's reliable to be able to make sure that, you can...
Like you travel or do whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Take care of work and both parents having the ability to schedule around those things, when one person is picking them up, how much time they're spending, where the overnights are. Ultimately, the goal is to have that schedule, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's important to be flexible when these things happen where, you've got this difficulty in adjustment, for sure. It's important to make space for kids when they need them, but you always have to have that goal, that understanding that ultimately what we're working towards is normalcy again. Right? And you can't lose that messaging along the way, because if you do, then the kids get used to this idea that they can just be loosey-goosey the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that long term just doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
There has to be some discipline. Yeah.
No, I think that's really good. Another tip you had said was cooperating with an ex. And I sort of added whether you want to or not, those were my words, is like sometimes that cooperation might need to be forced, like where it's the idea that you are able to come together because of the children. But, we've had other people on talking about, being single or, being divorced. And that seems to be one of the biggest issues and difficulties is because when you're not, sometimes that's a reason why you're not together anymore is you see differently, you see different things in different ways and you have difference of opinions. And so, coming together for the good of the child seems very utopian, but the reality of that is probably fairly difficult, especially when you're at, some sort of battle.
Yeah, in that sense, I've been fortunate. We've been fortunate. Their mom and I are both on the same page in terms of like everything that we're doing is for their benefit. That they are.
Might you have a different idea of what their benefit is?
Well,
or has it been pretty? I'm not saying it's always perfect, but
no, and we're people, and we have disagreements about things and misalignments about things, often. But ultimately, it's about their well-being. It's about
the intent is the same.
Yeah, the intent's always the same, right. And neither one of us has ever put the girls second under any circumstance. And, it's almost a competition in that regard, who can be a better parent, and which,
that's
to me, that's a great competition to have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
No, for sure. That's a good way of looking at it. Like, I should have put that as a bullet, being competitive. And then the last one, which is kind of all encompassing of, showing them the love. And I think when we were having the conversation, it's, we were first talking about, or I had brought up, telling them how you feel. And you made a very good point, which said it's not about the talk, it's about the walk. And it's, sort of showing them those things. And, anyone can say anything, but it's really about how you act and, how you, communication is important, and it's something that you do. But whether you're showing interest in what they're doing, I think you had mentioned even like discovering the things that you can share together. And that was a really good point.
Yeah. It's that great quote from Batman, right? That it's not about the things that you say that defines you, right? It's paraphrasing, right? It's the things
was it the Batman Lego movie, or was it?
No, it's not the Lego movie. But it's the things that you do, right? And walking the walk and showing them by example, and really just living a normal life that includes them, right? That isn't despite them, but it is, when they're there, it's because of them and it's with them. You're not
fitting them into your life.
Yeah, it makes all of the difference. I've been focusing a lot on creating space for them that's their space, right? Giving them ownership of their own place. Yeah, physical space, right? Yeah. And that's been really good for them. It's been about like that's the leading by example thing. It's, live a good life, be a good person, and make sure that you give your kids the opportunity to see you in that light, not as a form of like, bragging or browbeating or anything like that, but just, be a good person all the time, but especially when it counts, when your kids are watching.
Yeah.
Because they become who you are in a lot of sense, know?
Right.
They take all of their cues from you. And not only that, another really important point is that, as a father, you become the icon for what they're going to see other men as. And in a lot of ways, what they're going to pursue in their life once they mature, when they're girls, right?
Right.
And so you have to think about yourself as like, I want to show them the person that I would love for them to have when they get older.
Yeah. This feels like an episode. I like all those points. Leading by example. It's a good, it's a good thing, because your thoughts are different when you are leading by example.
Yeah. For sure.
You're doing it because somebody's watching.
Right.
And that's a different way of living. So
yeah, absolutely.
No, that's great. I really appreciate it. So, wow, that's a lot. That was a lot of stuff. But thank you, Alan. That was very insightful.
Yeah, cool.
And the idea too that, for people who are going through something like that, if you've got any questions, feedback, Alan Ellen Bush, what should they do?
Actually, I'll let you know. We go to podcast@dudesadads.com if you want to email us and talk to us about your experiences. But if you want to hit us up and help us out on social media, go to @dudesadads on Twitter, dudesadads.com on Facebook, and please go to YouTube, iTunes, which is now going to be Apple Podcasts, by the way. I don't know if you talked about this, and Stitcher. And go to look for Dudes to Dads, hit subscribe, leave some reviews, and particularly 5-star and the better reviews would help out a lot. Awesome. It perpetuates the show.
Well, Alan, thank you. Alan, thank you. Wow, that's an easy way of doing
Double
it.
Allens.
Double Allens.
Allen squared.
And that's it for today.
That's it.
We will see you next week.
Thank you.